Welcome to a new Team CGC 9.8 video. Today I have 5 McFarlane 9.8 comics that are dropping in value. But should you get in there and buy these ones now while they're cooling down? That's what we'll kind of talk about on the video today. So first one up, probably one of my favorite 9.8 comics of all time. It's an Incredible Hulk 340 with the classic McFarlane Bob Wycheck cover on this one. Second time ever Hulk and Wolverine fight it out in comic books as well. Dropping in value, this one, absolutely. It was about a year and a half ago, the kind of height of the stimulus check comic book market kind of thing. There were a few of these that had gone over $2,000 in a 9.8 direct edition, like 2,100. I think there was one that even went for 2,200 during that time. I wasn't really recommending to get in there at that time, but this one, since that point, has absolutely dropped in value. Recent sale was $1,399.99, so kind of $1,400. Also saw one sell on eBay for $1,600 or best offer, so I think that's going to go maybe like $1,250, maybe up to that $1,400 level, right in that sort of a price range. So absolutely dropping in value. This one has always been one of my favorite 9.8s, just being a big McFarlane fan for sure, but I got 4 of them in a 9.8, all in the direct edition. And it just looked really good on the census as a great value in a 9.8 at the time when I purchased mine. They were all about $400. This was in 2019. I think one I even bought in 2018. Look on the census though, 852 9.8, so one of 852, 11.6% is the 9.8 ratio. That's great for a late 80s comic book. So of all graded copies, only 11.6% of them are 9.8s. So it's a tough 9.8, not as tough as like an Amazing Spider-Man 300. That's like an anomaly in the late 80s, but this one's still really tough, and it's like way less expensive than an Amazing Spider-Man 300. Certainly it was when I had purchased mine. So dropping in price now, I think you want to grab this one on the cool down, especially if you're a McFarlane fan. You almost can't go wrong with like Hulk and Wolverine in any kind of key issue. 1,400. I think, if one's just looking great, nicely centered. I brought out this one actually because this one, for mine, I got 4 of them. This one has great colors, but a little bit of a weird centering where there's a miswrap toward the back. And unfortunately, like McFarlane's signature is on the spine here, so you kind of get a little bit of his signature folded near to the back. So one like this with, maybe not the best centering for that signature, will probably go like 1,250, I say. But if you find a really nice one, I think that $1,400 price, nice centered, nice colors, with the signatures kind of nicely centered. 1,400, I think, is kind of a price target to aim for, with a few selling right around that level in a Hulk 340. So dropping in price, but I think it's one, yeah, absolutely, if you're a McFarlane fan and big into 9.8s, to kind of have it on your radar. Yeah, it is a pretty special 9.8 for the late 80s. Pretty tough in the 9.8 grade. Next one. It's a Spawn #1 in a newsstand. Yeah, I always like to recommend Spawn #1. And I do specify in the newsstand because if you look on the census for Spawn #1, there's like so many in a 9.8. Spawn #1 came out when comic books were pretty much as popular as they ever been in 1992. And there were like 1.8 million Spawn #1s printed or whatever it was. So I always specify, like, if you want a Spawn #1 in the 9.8 and you're kind of coming at it from an investment grade philosophy like I do, you probably want to go after the newsstand edition. So recent prices on a Spawn #1, $900 saw one sell for. I think that's a bang on price target to aim for in this kind of environment. This one is dropping in value a little bit, certainly around the same time as that 340 heated up. Like, all the comic books were really hot during that time. This one was, again, like 1,300, 1,400. One maybe even got up to like 1,500 there. Cooled down, but then it actually heated up last year when, there was like Gunslinger Spawn and King Spawn and Spawn Universe. There were a ton of Spawn comic books during that time. And Spawn books were pretty hot actually last year, kind of the second half of last year. I think this one was kind of 1,100 or so during that period. But yeah, most recent sale, 900. So I think it's a great time to think about a Spawn #1 in a newsstand. Yeah, it's been quite a while since they've been kind of going around $900. So a little bit of a pullback on a Spawn #1. And yeah, if you can do a little under 900, I just think would be a screaming deal on the newsstand edition. But just super nostalgic. First appearance of Spawn in the more rare newsstand 9.8, like if you're a Spawn fan. This one makes so much sense. And there's probably some underrated potential, I would say. Like, if that Spawn movie ever comes out, I know it's been supposed to be coming out for like the last 5 years, but this one would do well in that kind of environment, like a, you know, Spawn movie is coming kind of thing. Quickly on the census, like 8,657, that's the newsstands and the directs all lumped into one. So there's probably about 900 or 1,000 newsstands in a 9.8 would be my guess. 49.1%, the 9.8 ratio. So yeah, there's just a lot of them in the 9.8. That's why I always kind of specify to go for the newsstand in a Spawn #1. Hopefully around $900, you could swing that one. Just a no-brainer if you're a big Spawn fan, for sure. And I'm kind of on the record, I kind of want another one, to be honest. I got a raw copy in a newsstand. That's probably like a 9.4 or something. And I got this one, but I would like kind of a multiple copy of a Spawn #1 newsstand. All right, next one, over here. It's Amazing Spider-Man 300. So this one had been pulling back from the all-time high prices, which were kind of achieved around the Venom 2 kind of hype for the movie. But this one really hasn't pulled back too much as some of the other Venom keys, and it really makes sense. Like Amazing Spider-Man, such a tough 9.8 for a late 80s comic book. So it's absolutely one to target if you're just really serious about investing in 9.8 comic books. Probably the best 1980s key issue to buy in a 9.8. We'll get to the census as kind of the reasoning, but some of the recent prices on this one. There were 3 of them that sold on Comic Link recently. We did document that on a recent price video, but they sold for $5,201, $5,400, and $5,605. So the peak for this one was kind of right around $7,000, I want to say. There might have been a few that had went just, you know, a little bit over that, again, leading into the kind of Venom 2 movie. Plus, the comic book market was really hot during that time as well. About 3-4 months ago, though, I think the low for this one was under $5,000, a few I'd went for. I think there were a few like kind of off-white to white page ones that went for like $4,300, like sort of in that area. That would have been the low for this one. So I think it's bouncing back a little bit, and it absolutely deserves to bounce back. I think this, you know, 5,201 to 5,605 is kind of a great price target range to aim for, depending on like how good the colors are and the centering and everything. But on the census, 1,233 9.8s in a blue label. When I got into collecting, there were like 900 of them on the census, so still quite a few getting graded out there for sure. But the 9.8 ratio is just ticking lower and lower over time. 5.3% of all graded copies are 9.8. So this is a super heavily graded book, like the most popular 80s graded book pretty much. And only 5.3% of them are 9.8s. That's like the lowest I really know of in the late 80s. And the reason why this one is like over $5,000, those 9.8 ratios pretty much correlate to price if it's with like a really big wanted key issue kind of thing. So Amazing Spider-Man 300, it is an absolute no-brainer to buy on this pullback. Hopefully you get it closer to $5,200. Consider like Amazing Spider-Man 298, that's the first Todd McFarlane Spider-Man. That one's kind of pulling back as well. I think they're about $750. And Amazing Spider-Man 299, that great cameo of Venom. That one seems to be kind of about $850 maybe. But all those are kind of on the pullback. I think 298 got up to about 1,000. 299 was over 1,000 when these books were quite a lot hotter over a year ago. But to me, Spider-Man 300, just a super tough 9.8. Like if you're really serious about 9.8s, it's an absolute no-brainer. Okay, next one. Touched on in a recent video, but I want to do it again because it is one to buy. Amazing Spider-Man 316. The first pretty much really awesome Venom cover by Todd McFarlane. Super well collected and for good reason, just absolutely, you know, one to want as a Venom and McFarlane fan. This one is dropping in price, certainly very similar to the other books where pretty sure one went for like $2,000. I think it was like literally one sale. I remember seeing that and I was like, wow, like 316 has come a long way because, you know, this was during the hot comic book market. One of these went for $2,000. I had purchased one of mine. I had to go back in a video and kind of look just to make sure. It was early 2020, so not too long ago. I purchased one in the 9.8. I think it was this one here for $261. So $261 in early 2020, all the way up to $2,000 in like, you know, mid 2021, I guess it would have been. Or maybe even early 2021, kind of late 2020, early 2021, I think was like the peak of the hot comic book market. I think that's when the stimulus checks were hitting and all that stuff. So has pulled back from that level, absolutely. A recent price is $963.53, $975.51. Yeah, I think if you can get this one under $1,000 right now, it's probably worth it, you know, just to get in there right now. under $1,000. Saw a couple newsstands sell. I'll share with you those prices. $1,749.99 and $1,690. Yeah, this one in a newsstand is a pretty great one to target. And yeah, to be honest, they're not that much more expensive. And the newsstand, I think I saw a newsstand go for like $3,500, like just something spectacular during those hot comic book markets. So, you know, these have absolutely been cooling down since then. But yeah, I think it's one to buy for sure. Under $1,000 on the census though. 1,349. 9.8's in a blue label. 21.5%. The 9.8 ratio. So this is kind of like a normal. You know, I think it's, what is it, 89? Yeah, late 80s. 21.5% of all graded copies. That's like pretty normal and, you know, nothing super special. So it just shows you like the 5.3%. The lower the better on the 9.8 ratios on the Amazing Spider-Man 300. Just makes it so special and hard to get in a 9.8. Yeah, so you know what, 316, pulling back from those highs, and hopefully you can get it closer to like $900, $963, $975 were some recent sales for an Amazing Spider-Man 316. All right, and last one, we'll end on a bit of an underfollowed one, but just a really cool McFarlane one to think about. It's a Spawn number 50. And you know what, now that I think of it, this might be a Capullo homage cover. It's just kind of hitting me on video right now. No, it might be a McFarlane cover. It's a homage of Spawn number 1, Spawn 50, but it might be Capullo. I'm not sure, but that might be a bit of a mistake on the video. But still one to target, certainly if you're a Spawn fan or a McFarlane fan. Recent sales for that one, $169.99 and $210.50. That was the most recent sale. This is one that really, it was one that you could have bought for $100 in like 2019, and I almost bought one, and I wish I did, to be honest, in a 9.8. Really right into the hot comic book market kind of thing. This one, I remember seeing some sales at like $275 to $300, and just thinking like, you know, wow, I should have bought that Spawn 50 in the 9.8 for $100 back in the day. So, you know, about 300 peak comic book market, let's call it. Now, you know, $210.50, $169.99. But just a really cool, like, you know, you kind of get those nostalgia vibes from the Spawn number 1 homage. But for this one, Spawn 50, there's only 73 in the 9.8 on the census. So a 1 of 73, whereas like Spawn number 1, there's 8,657 of them in the 9.8. So yeah, I think Spawn 50 is just making a lot of sense as a great Spawn collector item in a 9.8. 39.9% is the 9.8 ratio on a Spawn 50. So if you want that one, kind of 170 to 210 is the price range. I think even at 210, you know, if you're a really big Spawn fan, I think if a Spawn 50 is just looking great in a new case 9.8 is probably worth about $210 for sure. All right, so 5 McFarlane 9.8s that are pulling back in price, and I'm a big McFarlane fan, so, you know, if I didn't have a bunch of these already, I would probably be on the lookout, you know, for a few more of them certainly, but absolutely I do still want a Spawn number 1 newsstand for sure, and even a Spawn 50 in a 9.8 as well. So a couple of these I'll be on the lookout as they're dropping in price as well. I'll be on the lookout to buy as they're dropping in price. All right, team, thanks so much for watching, though. I'll see you on the next one. If you're liking my videos, please subscribe and hit that bell, and I'll keep you updated on future content.